even has a countdown.
Yeah, it's fancy. What's up, everybody? It's Kyle with another episode of Hillsborough and Hunterdon REAL. I'm here with my friend Erik Peterson. Going to get the opportunity and the blessing to interview Erik. We became buddies in September or October. We did our ribbon cutting at the Lambertville Estate, and Erik was kind enough to come out, and we became friends since then. So we're going to dive into a lot of the stuff that Erik is working on, his run for Congress, his mindset, his philosophy. But let's start with, why don't you tell people where you live, tell us a little bit about your family, what you do for a profession, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, I'm a lifelong New Jersey resident. I grew up down in South Jersey in Cherry Hill, and I moved up to Hunterdon County in 1990. I got a job promotion, and I was running an office for beneficial management in Flemington, where the Rita's Water Ice currently is located. And I was up here and fell in love with Hunterdon County. I went to law school at Temple Law School, went to undergrad at North Carolina State University, have a degree in business management, and then I worked 5 years for beneficial, and then I decided to go to law school. I went to Temple Law School down in Philadelphia, and I knew that I was coming back to Hunterdon County because it is probably the greatest place to raise kids, and it is. There's no crime. It's pleasant. People are friendly. It's a good atmosphere, good schools. My kids have grown up in Mayberry, and I live in Franklin Township in Hunterdon County, just outside the town of Clinton, and it truly is Mayberry. It's really no different than that. It's just quiet, and what I love about here is not only the safety and the security aspect of it, and the friendliness of good schools, but we also have our churches are growing. Our churches are very vibrant. I go to St. Catherine's of Siena in Pittstown, and we actually,
church,
right up on that little hill right up there, right? And we grew so much that we bought another church to move into so we'd have space. And then we expanded the church up on the hill, and we're back into that church. And the beautiful thing is that, to me, we have had good priests there who were faithful to the Word of God. And as a result, it grew, the church grew, it attracts people. And not only that, it puts people have faith in the church when you have somebody that's so faithful. We have a priest, Father Chester, who is the real deal. Believes in his vow of poverty, believes in the Word, is very good, cares about people. And when Father Chester needs something, Father Chester gets it. He wanted to do a Mary garden, and it was going to cost, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000. The money was there. Now we're going to be doing we're adding on like a rec center kind of a thing, a social center to the church, and we'll do it. We'll raise the money. We'll have it done, and it's really something when you how powerful that can be, and the community in church. And one of the things that I thought I made a great decision about going to this church and becoming a part of it was when my oldest said to me, there was something very calming and comfortable being at church. And when you can get a teenager saying that they kind of like going to church, I think that really says something about the whole experience there.
Yeah.
You know?
That's really cool. And so you have how many children?
So I have 4 kids.
Four kids,
have my oldest, Sophie, is a freshman at Louisville, University of Louisville. Great little town, right in Bourbon heaven. And my son Clay is a senior at North Hunterdon. He swam and is playing baseball. He's a catcher. He's on the varsity baseball team. I have a daughter, Veronica, who's a sophomore. She swims as well. And I have a daughter, Samantha, who is in 7th grade.
Okay.
And she wants to strike out her own, so she's doing softball, golf, and swimming. But as you know, because we've had this conversation before, I really think I was an athlete. I swam in college. it was the best thing that ever happened to me. After having great parents and having that foundation, swimming taught me a lot. Taught me about perseverance, taught me about individuality, and how it's up to you to overcome those obstacles. So when you're in the pool, it's you against we always say it's you against the clock, right? You're trying to be faster and faster. And there's nothing else out there. You can't blame it on a teammate, you can't blame it on anything. It all comes back to you. And although swimming's a team sport, it all comes back to you, how you perform. And so, and when you're in the pool, at times I was in the pool for 3 hours, 4 hours a day, plus land routine. You learn a lot of things. You learn how to budget your time, you learn how to persevere. Think about being in a pool 5-6 days a week, 3 hours a day, 2-3 hours a day, and all you're doing is looking at that black line on the bottom of the pool. You can't breathe when you want to, and you have all these things going through your head that you have to persevere through, and you learn how to do it. You don't have a choice. If you want to be good, you have to do it. And what I was able to do was that, and what that's done for me is it taught me time management, it taught me perseverance, and whenever the going got tough, I knew I could overcome it. And so I wanted my kids to have that foundation. I was hoping one of them would be some kind of star swimmer, we'll all have that little hope. But they all have a lot of skill, and they learn from that how to budget their time and all those things. And I see the pride in it because they realize that what they're doing in the pool and the practices that they're doing, most folks couldn't do that or wouldn't do it. Not that they couldn't, but they wouldn't do it, and they're doing it. So it gave them a lot of self-confidence about themselves and what they're able to accomplish if they put their mind to it. So I always thought swimming was a great sport that way. But as you know, I still swim today.
Yeah.
I was in the pool just before coming here. I'm not nearly as fast as I was, but I'm still getting the yardage in and keeping myself in shape. And I've been fortunate. It's been, having done that my whole life, I've had no real health problems. I'm very rarely sick, and I'm still able to do everything that I want to do without any crutch or anything like that.
So talk about the importance of that, Eric, with how busy you are. You got 4 children, happily married. You got the law firm, assemblyman running for Congress. The importance of your morning workout, I know from talking to you, but getting your mind right with the workout. Like, talk about how big of a part of your day that is for you.
It just sets up the whole day. I mean, when you get right down to it, it sets up the whole day. So for the folks out there who, I've been swimming year round for, I just turned 56, so 49 years, literally 49 years. I've been getting in that pool year round, and I am no different than anybody else. I do not want to go in the morning. I make myself go. And then I never really ever wanted to get in the pool. I was always the last one to get in and practice. And it's cold, right?
Sure.
And who wants to, especially early in the morning, who wants to, back in the day, 5 o'clock in the morning, jumping in a cold pool? Not exactly the thing that I wanted to do. Still don't, but I do it. And that first 500 yards, 1,000 yards, I struggle a little bit, until I warm up and I start feeling good. And then from all that training over all those years, there's something that mentally clicks, and then I'm into it. And then now it's not about just struggling. Now it's about that clock on the wall. Can I go faster? So I'll start swimming sets. And my whole mindset is, can each rep within the set be faster than the one before? And so it's called negative splitting. So I want to do that. And it's hard to do, and it tires you out. But what happens is, once you turn your mind around and you do that, and you start and you accomplish it, you start feeding on that. And although it's harder, you're tired, it's easier to do. And you get into that. And then the sets start getting not easier because physically they're still tough, but mentally they're getting easier because you're accomplishing something. And then by the time you're finished the workout, I feel like I've accomplished something. I feel like I've done something, and I'm ready for the rest of the day. And physically, all that, those aches and pains, and that when you first wake up and you're a little sore and tight from, you know, laying for 6-8 hours, right? I feel fantastic. I feel like I'm ready to take on the day, and you just have that, like everything's back in rhythm, and you're ready to go for the day. And I do that. I know that's where I'm going to end, and that's the motivator to get up in the morning and go do it. So, like I said, it's never easy in the beginning, but it always turns out into that enthusiasm. And at that point, the only reason I'm getting out of the pool is because I got to be somewhere.
Sure.
Not because I wouldn't want to do more. You know, it never seems like I get to do enough.
Yeah, and I love that aspect that you do that and that you share that. So let's segue now into, how did you decide that you wanted to get involved with politics, right? I know me and you share similar beliefs and mindset. And then beyond that, what made you decide to want to run for Congress?
Sure. I got into politics, it really started at the dinner table at home. My family, we had dinner every night together as a family. I have 3 older sisters, and we talked. My father read. He was always reading. He read more books than anybody I've ever known, and he would read the newspaper back in the day when you actually had a physical newspaper. And at dinner, we would talk about our days, and then invariably we'd go on to current events. And we'd talk about current events around the dinner table. And I never realized that we were different than anybody else until one of my sister's friends said something about being intimidated about coming to our house for dinner, because when we talked about current events, we actually debated them. I didn't think it was a debate back then. I thought we were just giving our point of view and we were talking about it. But evidently, where people don't do that at the dinner table, this was very unusual, and it was a little bit more, we were more debating than I ever realized. And I always wanted to understand the current events. I was interested in politics, and I knew that people with going into politics for the right reason needed to get involved, or the people who were in it for the wrong reason would. And you can see that through history, right? People get into politics for different reasons and do different things. And we see it, like we currently have a congressman here that I'm hoping to be running against in the fall, who has worked for the government his entire life. He's become a multi-millionaire doing that. And then he went to Washington, D.C. and started trading on inside information that he got as a congressman. He's been brought up on ethics charges for it. And he's down there to make money. Yeah. He's going to make money. I've never made any money in politics. Either I'm the worst politician in the world in that aspect, or I told my wife a long time ago when we first dated. I met her when I was at law school. She was an undergrad. She was actually the lifeguard at the pool at Temple. That's how we met, right? And I told her I was interested in politics. I told her it would take a lot of time, and she was okay with that. And I've since told her that we'll never be rich because I'm too honest. Because and you can see it in my record. I have a record. You can go look at it, and you can see my votes. We've talked about this. CPAC, who rates every legislator in the country, they have a lifetime rating, and my lifetime rating is a 95, which means I've stayed true to my conservative values over the 12 years I've been in the legislature, and that's the highest in the legislature. And it's because I do what I think is right. And one of the things a lot of people don't realize, because they think we're all corrupt, and that's not true. There are good people in the legislature, and there are people who are doing the right thing. And I'm not the only one. And one of the things that I find is that people think we're all corrupt, and then they call me or they write to my office about something, and I call them back, and they want to know why I did something, right? And I start explaining it to them, and I have a rational basis. It's thought out why I did it, A, B, C, D, and I explain it to them, and they're surprised. They think that some higher force told me what to do, and that's why I did it. And I said, no, I did it because all these reasons, and to me this seemed like the best decision. And they're surprised. And one, a lot of times they never considered what I was considering. Two, they appreciated the fact that that I was actually thinking through how I vote, and not just voting party line or what power broker that they think we all got put in office on told me to do. No, I voted what I thought was the best for the people that I represent. And I have certain values. I run on those values. I don't hide them. The same thing. One of the great things, Kyle, is my running mates and I. We run, Senator Daugherty and Assemblyman DeMeo. We run on our values. We run on how we vote. A lot of people say something and then vote differently, right? So one of my opponents, he talks like he's conservative. His speech is about how he's so conservative. I think he quote is he was the conservative break on Phil Murphy's crazy spending, something along those lines, right? But of course, he voted for one of Phil Murphy's budgets. He has a lifetime rating with CPAC of 73, which means, and if you look at his record, what happens is when he was running for office for something where he needed to have conservative credentials, he voted conservative. When he wasn't doing that, he voted moderate. I don't do that. I figure, hey, look, I am who I am. I'm going to vote the way that I think is the right way to vote, the way I told people I would vote, right? And that I'm going to do it. And if the people don't like it, they have the opportunity every 2 years to vote me out of office. And quite the opposite's happened. In the time that we've been there, we have actually seen that we're getting more votes than we did. And even what's really fascinating to me, and this is where the Republican Party has gone wrong, the three of the most conservative people in the legislature, especially Senator Daugherty and myself, we were told we would never win Bound Brook or South Bound Brook when our district got redistricted, those towns came in. We were also told we wouldn't win Phillipsburg or Alpha, that those were Democrat towns and they would never vote for people like us. Well, we've always won Phillipsburg, we always win Alpha, and we win Bound Brook and South Bound Brook except once, and that was when the Chris Christie gas tax went through. And although all three of us were opposed to it, went to rallies against the gas tax, I actually funded opposition to the gas tax myself with my own money because I was that much against it. I actually had a loud discussion with the governor, face to face, maybe a foot apart about it, and I told him he was wrong. He told me I was wrong. I thought the state police security were going to tackle me and take me out at one point, but I was really against it. But they didn't vote for us, and the reason that we were getting when we went to the doors was because of that gas tax. And we said we didn't vote for it, and they said it doesn't matter. It was your party that did it. And so they blamed all of us. And they blamed us because we didn't act like Republicans. We're supposed to be the party that doesn't tax you just to tax you. We're the party that's supposed to be better with how we spend money. We're the party of values. And when we betrayed the people on that, that's why they put us in office, and we betrayed them. Not me personally, but the party betrayed them. And so they took it out on us. That was the only time that we lost. And what that told me was our Republican values, right? Pro-Constitution, pro-individual rights, small limited government, lower taxes, and I know nobody believes us when we say we're going to lower taxes, but I've actually done it when I was on the freeholder board here in Hunterdon County. But those things that when we as Republicans, when you elect people who actually believe what they're telling you and actually have moral conviction, actually have a conviction to follow that, you'll get it. I was at a women's Somerset County Federated Republican Women's had an event, and the last question, because we talked about if we took control of the legislature, what we would do, and the last question to the panel of legislators was, if we send you the people and give you that majority, will you really do it? And the natural reaction to everybody is, of everybody at that panel, was, of course. And I said something a little bit different. I said, send me the right people. Send me the people that actually believe in it and have, not only believe in it, but have the guts to stand up for it, that aren't afraid. You know, look, I've been threatened so much that I don't even know where to begin to tell you about it. The things that people have attempted to do, how they've threatened. They've even gone as far as to try to get my wife fired from her job. All right, and to get me to fall in line. And I've always said no. I'm going to do the right thing, because if I do the right thing, I'll never have to. I'll never be ashamed. I'll never be ashamed to look my kids in the eye and tell them to do the right thing in life. And I've taught my kids, do the right thing in life. It might be a hard row in the beginning, but in the end, it'll work out for the best. You just have to have faith that doing the right thing always pays off in the end. And I've lived that philosophy in my personal life, and I've done it in my political life. And I've always done what I thought was the right thing, no matter what the threat, no matter what the consequences were going to be, because that is the only way that I can live with myself. And two, I promised those people that voted for me, that's what I would do. And if I don't keep my promise, then I really, what good am I if I can't keep a promise?
Yeah, and that's, if you look at around the gym and even some of the tattoos I have, it's do what you said you would do, which is what you live by. And that's a big thing for me personally, which I admire. And I think exactly what you said, as far as there should be some type of term limits. These people are not supposed to be professional politicians. That's not the way the country was set up. Talk a little bit about, just for people, including myself, like, let's say you win, you get elected to Congress. What does that look like just as far as logistically? Are you going down, how often are you going down to DC? Like, what does it look like?
That's a great question. So, if I get elected to DC, you have, it's kind of interesting. I'll have an office or two up here in the district. It's a pretty big district. It's 800,000 people. It's a little bit of Sussex, all of Warren, all of Hunterdon, a portion of Somerset, down western side of Hillsborough, Branchburg, Somerville, Bridgewater, Bernards, Basking Ridge, Bedminster, Warren, all those towns, a piece of Union, and a portion of Morris County.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will, if I'm in Congress, I will have an office here in Hunterdon County, probably in Clinton, easily accessible to everybody. The one thing that I've done since I've been in the legislature, and I will do if I go to Congress, is my staff will be staff who's there to work and help people, not people who are political hacks and they're in the office for political reasons. I actually hire people who come do a job, and because that's what they're getting paid to do. They're not getting paid to be political hacks for me. Basically, I would have to be down in Washington typically Tuesday through Thursday, sometimes longer, sometimes not at all. But typically you go down Tuesday. They usually vote in the later in the day. So you go down, we live close enough, we can go down on Tuesday. And you stay down there for the few days and then come back into the district. And then you're here in the district, usually on the weekends, and for events and different things going on in the communities that you represent, and be able to spend time with your family as well.
So would you have an office down there too? And like, what about housing? Like, how does that work?
Yep, so they provide you with an office in the Capitol building, and a staff. You hire your staff, you have a staff down there. So I'd have to find some place to live. In the beginning, I probably would stay in the office. Look, I'm quite honestly, you got to figure all that out. It's expensive.
Sure.
I've got 4 kids. I'm gonna have 3 kids in college all at one time, and I got 3 in braces right now. Right, the cost piles up. Right.
Sure.
But look, I'm not going to change. One thing I'm going to do is find a YMCA or some place that has a pool down there, and a gym, and I'm going to get up every morning, go get my workout in before I start the day. So it's no different than here at home. I sleep at home, I get up, pack my bag, go to the gym, get showered and changed there, and then go off to the day. So for me, that lifestyle is kind of what I already live.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of, I figure, kind of having done this for 49 years, I know if I find a gym down there with a pool and there's people that come and swim, I'll meet a lot of people down there. I'll have some friends down in DC, and swimming's a neat sport in this way. That common experience, especially if you compete it, that common experience is bonding. And my experience over my 49 years as I've moved around and swam at different pools is that if there's other people there that compete it in swimming, there'll be an instant bond and an instant friendship. And so I figure I'll be down there, I'll meet a bunch of people down there who swam, and I'll have friendships, and so as you kind of realize, I'm not into all the insider stuff, right? Because most people go and they just hang out with all the insiders. I actually figure I'll make friends down there that don't have anything to do with politics, and be able to go out to dinner and and do other things, pickleball or whatever it happens to be, and kind of have a normal life. Because one of the things I do not want to do is get caught up in all the nonsense, right? That a lot of people get caught into. It's very intoxicating when people come and call you by a title, right? Assemblyman Peterson, Congressman Peterson, right? And they're there, and they're nice to you and all this other stuff, right? It could be very intoxicating. I've never liked it. It's always made me feel uncomfortable. I recognize that when I'm in the Capitol that it's the appropriate way for people to address me, and so I'm okay with it there. I don't like it outside there because, look, I'm just your representative. Yes, I hold the office, but at the end of the day, I'm just a citizen just like you. But what happens is there's this whole world that is built on titles and status within politics, and it's not a place that I really want to be. What I want to be is with people just like you, right?
Yeah.
And hanging out, because that's where I feel most comfortable. And it's also one of the reasons it keeps me focused on what really goes on in the world and what the real problems are and what people really go through every day. And it allows me to, I don't get caught up in all that. Look, one of the things that what was the old saying? If you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, right? But I also knew, and I teach my kids this, I've taught my kids this, especially when they're going off to college. I say, you're gonna be in situations where it's going to be something that you don't want to be part of. I said, just leave. I said, the people won't get mad at you. They'll still, if they're good people, they'll still be friendly with you. But what will eventually happen is they'll know that you don't want to be part of whatever it is that they're doing. And they'll respect you for that. They'll respect you for that.
Yeah.
And what will happen is they just won't invite you to those things because they won't want to make you feel uncomfortable to have to say no or to leave. But they'll invite you to other things, and they'll respect you for who you are and what you're doing. And what else you'll find if you do that, other people, you'll give courage to other people who feel the same way but are getting sucked in. And you'll have a group of friends that share your values, and you won't get sucked into something that can drag you down. And so, I live that philosophy. I try to avoid those situations where you can get sucked into something, because no matter how strong any one of us think we are, we're not that strong. And the real strength comes from avoidance of the problem, right? So if you don't get yourself sucked, if you're not in a situation where you could be tempted, then your chances of not getting tempted are a lot greater than if you put yourself in that situation, right? So my whole worldview when I've been in Trenton is, yeah, I know everybody, I get along with everybody, but there's some things I just don't want to be part of. There's a thing called the League of Municipalities. Jim Florio, the former disgraced governor of New Jersey, not Florio, McGreevey, former disgraced governor of New Jersey. He wrote a book, and he talked about the League of Municipalities and some of the stuff that goes on down there. Now, these are elected officials and lobbyists and all that, and it was like an Animal House frat party thing. When I heard about all that, that was all going on down there, I said, I'm not going, right? I get invited to stuff, and I just said, you know what? That's not a place for me to be. That's not a place for a good Christian dad, husband to be in an atmosphere like that. If I were to go, I'd drive down for the day and then come home. And I've never gone. And I'm sure I've missed opportunities of making relationships. I'm sure I've missed opportunities where being on this campaign for Congress, it'd be easier to raise money and all those things. But I never wanted to be in that situation where there was an atmosphere of it. The closest that I've ever come to any of that is there's a chamber trip where they would get a special Amtrak train, and they would start in Newark, and there's a couple stops along the way in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, and then they go down to Washington, D.C. They had a big dinner. There were all these functions going on all over Washington, D.C. that lobbyists and different groups would have. And I've gone to that a few times, and the only reason I went was that there's these dinners all over Washington, D.C., and I would go with a group, and what we would do is we'd go to different dinners for 5 minutes, literally like 5 minutes to say hi to the different organizations, and then we as a group, as a caucus, would go and have a private dinner somewhere amongst ourselves, and then we'd go back to the hotel. Well, at the hotel, there'd be this rager, middle-aged folks having this rager, drunk and just out of, just stuff that they shouldn't be doing at their age, right?
Sure.
And I always got back, went to my room, and I was getting up the next morning to go for a run.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna, and I just, that whole scene is just trouble. And it's not that I don't have a set of values and a moral compass and that I'm not strong, but why even go and tempt yourself? Why even go and put yourself in that situation? So I just stayed away from it. And, it does make it harder to be in politics, and it does make it harder to do things like raise money and to be the inside guy that the establishment is promoting, because I'm not in that setting. But the other part of it is that I've always been able to stay true to all my values, whether it's my personal values or my political values, because of that. And Washington, D.C., so I'm going to write a book about things people said to me that changed my life. And I'm going to tell you a story. And I think this really kind of sums it all up. when I got elected to the Hunterdon County Freeholder Board, back then it was a freeholder board, but I hadn't yet been sworn in. The Chamber of Commerce has this business meeting, like monthly, and they invited me to come speak as the new freeholder, and I was totally green. I mean, I just got elected. I've never held office before. I'm very green, and I go in, and some old guy, he's probably like my age now, said to me, "What? You're not going to be any different than the other freeholders. You're going to get down there in Flemington and just become one of the gang." And it was one of those moments in life. I was mad. I was mad that he said this to me. Like, who are you to say that to me? Don't you know me? That kind of a thing. And I turned to the guy and I said, I didn't run for freeholder to make 4 new friends. I ran to do what I said I would do. And since that day, right, that was 16 years ago, I've never forgotten that moment. And every time that I have done something politically, in the back of my mind is that guy saying that to me and me saying, no, I don't care about making friends. I care about what I promised you. And that has been driving me for 16 years in everything that I've done in politics. And that is kind of my guiding light in politics, is that guy, I don't even know who it is, but I'll never forget him saying that, and I'll never forget the way that it made me feel. You know, and I think it was that emotion that I was hurt that they thought so little of me. But what it also did was it made me realize what I was getting into. It made me realize that I had to make a commitment. It made me realize at that moment in time, it made me realize that I had to make a choice. I could either be part of the gang, which in my eyes is part of the problem, or I could do what I said I would do, and the people could count on me. And I thought, I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do.
Sure, which is huge. It's huge. Talk about, make sure we'll get on time.
Okay.
Talk about, I've got a few more questions that I want to make sure that everybody's clear on. I know we share similar beliefs on this, but that's kind of irregardless as far as the mask mandates. The vaccine mandates.
Let's get into that. So, look, you and I have had this conversation a couple of times. COVID came around out of nowhere, right? And I, like everybody else, and at first didn't know what to think, right? And I realized, one thing that I realized when the COVID happened and they shut down everything, was that I needed to normalize my kids' lives, my whole family, my wife included. I was still going into the office every day, but they were at home. They didn't have anywhere to go. So I started doing things to make sure that they had some normality to their life and that they weren't just all laying around, or, you know, because it's a bad place mentally to be. So we started doing stuff. So I started following what was going on, started reading about it, and I soon realized, very, very quickly realized that my kids, who are very healthy, very athletic, in phenomenal shape. I mean, it was the end of swim season. These kids were in phenomenal shape, and my wife as well. And I said, this really isn't a risk for us. This isn't a risk for us. We're not over 70. We don't have diabetes. We don't have any of these issues. And then the other thing I thought, I think we already had it, because back in November of 2019, we all got sick. Similar kind of symptoms, no one bad. Like, I don't think any of us stopped doing what we were doing. Had a runny nose, maybe a headache, whatever. But my youngest, she had all this congestion. And every night when she slept, the congestion would build up. She'd wake up in the morning all congested. And then she'd be fine. She'd be fine all day. And looking back on it, I kind of think maybe we went a little, we took it a little too, we didn't take it too serious, but I mean, she was going to swim practice. We should be able to do a whole 2-hour swim practice, hour and a half swim practice without a problem. So that congestion was building up. So we were taking her to the doctors because we couldn't understand the congestion. He couldn't figure out what it was. He had no idea. So we think that it went through the house. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, we have nothing to worry about. And I realized, as fast forward, we told the kids they could have friends over, they could go to friends' houses. We did that, some kids showed up. Next thing I know, all these kids are showing up at my house, my kids are going to their houses. That summer was a big party for the kids down at the trestle, going swimming in the river and everything. Whole socialization of it. Parents were letting their kids do stuff, people were socializing. There were still some events were still going on in politics. The Republicans were having events, the Democrats were. I kept my office open the whole time. I kept my legislative office open the whole time. And I realized that the mask was really not, it was really more of a symbol of doing something than actually doing something. And I also looked at this vaccine, and I was at the gym, and this guy had his phone and he was listening to something. I was like, oh, what are you on a conference call while you're here at the gym, right? I'm goofing around with him. And he said, no, I'm listening to this debate about this vaccine. He goes, this is a guy in pharmaceuticals. He goes, I'm not sure whether I'm going to get it or not. And he started telling me about what the discussions were. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm getting that, right? I was like, I'm not getting that. I don't need it. I don't have a risk. And it was talking about sterilization and all these other things. And this was this is when you were allowed to debate about it, right?
Yeah.
This is when we were allowed to talk about it and have a debate whether it was the efficacy of the vaccine, before we got told that if you didn't believe in it, you were a crackpot and you needed to be silenced, right? And right then and there, I knew I was never letting my kids get it, and we made that decision. And I think it was the right decision, to be, in all honesty. I have been against the vax mandate and the mask mandates, and I think that I had this discussion yesterday with a reporter. The government coercing you or forcing you to ingest something or to have something injected into you is the most invasive, and actually it's the greatest loss of liberty. It's one thing if I take your property. It's one thing if I restrict what you can do. It's another when I come and force something into you.
Sure. When
you lose your bodily autonomy, right? And you no longer have the right to say no, according to the government. You've lost everything. You have no freedom anymore. Theoretically, you have no freedom because they're totally in control. And that is abhorrent to me. And so I've been against it. I think the mask in school, I was telling the reporter yesterday, I said, I watched North Hunterdon High School, gave us updates on COVID. So whenever somebody got COVID, we got notified, and they would tell us basically where they got the COVID from, at home or from this, that. What I found very interesting watching this over a year and a half period was that we were told the teachers union wanted to tell us the kids were super spreaders. Well, almost all the kids that got it at home from a parent or some other adult. All the teachers who were in the classroom got it from another adult, not from the kids. I don't think there was one at North where they got it from the kids. The bus driver who got it, he's on a bus with all the kids, windows closed and everything, right? He didn't get it from the kids. He got it from another adult somewhere else. And what I thought was really ironic, the one teacher who refused to come in, she was scared to death, was home. Well, evidently she wasn't home all the time. She's just home from school.
Sure.
Because she got it. and I thought, wow, what irony is that, right? And so when you look at this, it was all unnecessary, and the damage it did for these kids and losing education. I'm very thankful for North Hunterdon and Franklin Township School, where my kids go, because they were very aggressive about getting the kids in, getting them back full time, trying to normalize their lives as much as possible. And I have to tell you, it has paid off in dividends, because the kids are emotionally and academically better off than a lot of their peers, even right here in Hunterdon County, who the schools didn't do that. Everything is like, if you look at, I hear stories about those school districts, but everything's back to normal at North and Franklin Township School. It's like it never happened. And I'm thankful for that. So what that showed me is that, what my experience was, is that, you know, this was an overreach of the government and an overreaction, especially when you find out that most people who died, something 70-80% of the people that died were over 80 years old and had 5 comorbidities, right? I mean, we're talking really sick people,
yeah,
and really fragile people. I some of the things that I did, I attended the rallies that were in Trenton. At one point, I was at an Unmask Our Kids rally, and I was meeting everybody there. A woman was selling signs, "Don't be a Murphy puppet, unmask our, take off your mask," or whatever it said. I bought one, and then I went into the Capitol building, right? Everyone's supposed to be wearing masks and all that. I stopped wearing masks long time ago. And I came in, and I'll never forget, I'm walking down the hall, I've got my sign, right? I'm carrying my sign, don't have a mask on, and I passed Senator Sweeney. And the look in his eye when he saw me without a mask and that sign, I don't know whether it was fear or surprise, but for a guy who said he's so tough, he really didn't act very tough. And then I went into the caucus room, and I got everybody's attention, put up my sign, and I said, we all need to go out there and support these people, and let them know that our caucus is with them. And my caucus did go out, and we almost all of us spoke at the rally, and we let them know that we were with them. We were with them on this. And then another thing that I did is the community college, Raritan Valley Community College, was requiring a vax mandate to attend school. I was outraged by this, because somebody like my son in the age group 14 to early 20s, who's in top physical condition, that myocarditis, right, the heart inflammation, is 1 in 25,000 in that profile. And his chance of dying from COVID or having a bad reaction is like 1 in a million, right? Yeah. And so there's other kids in his same situation. And even in that age group that goes to community college, their risk is so low, right? And they're mandating this. And I thought, you're really, because you want to show how compassionate you are, and how you are part of the gang, and you're in on all this, and you're one of the good people, right? Forcing people to get vaccinated because you care. You're putting these kids at a high risk that work out. And I thought it was outrageous. I wrote to the school president, and I wrote to the freeholders here in Hunterdon County, and I said, you got to put an end to this. This is crazy. The science doesn't, what the science says is you're putting them at a higher risk. These kids in your school, you're putting them at a higher risk than you are if they don't have the vaccine. Yeah. And I asked our freeholder board, I said, look, take aggressive action. There's only one thing that a progressive liberal understands, and that's telling them you'll take away their money. That's the only thing they understand. You want to have power over them? Tell them that we'll stop sending Hunterdon County share to the community college if they don't stop this whole mandate. And I said, and if they don't, we should send our kids to Warren County Community College, where they don't have a vax mandate. Think about that. And unfortunately, they didn't do much of anything. They just sent a letter asking the president of the school why he didn't allow the board of Raritan Valley Community College to make the decision instead of him just making the decision. I think we needed to stand up for those kids. My understanding is 1/3 of the kids who go to that school applied for an exemption, and it's my experience in life is that if 1/3 did it, there was probably another 1/3 who either didn't know they could or figured they would never get it or didn't know how to do it but wanted to do it. That most of those kids didn't want to do it. Why didn't we stand with them? Why didn't we stand up for them? It would have been the right thing to do. The data shows that it's the right thing to do. The science shows it was the right thing to do. Why couldn't they stand up for those kids? What good are you as an elected official if you're not going to stand up for people who are being coerced by government to do something against their will? That's not good for them, right? If you want, nothing says you can't get vaccinated. If that's what you want to do,
Sure.
have at it. But you shouldn't force people. And if 1/3 of the kids didn't want it, 1/3 of them, and there's probably more, then why are you forcing them? I mean, why are you doing that? And we know from the vaccine it didn't stop the transmission of it. So there was no third-party benefit to taking it. All it was, if anything, was a benefit to the individual who got vaccinated. Let it be an individual choice. Let them look at their health profile, let them discuss it with their physician, and decide what was the best decision for them. Because all I know, and I say this, and listen up out there, we have Governor Phil Murphy and Judy Persicelli, the head of the Department of Health for the state of New Jersey, who the geniuses, those experts, right? We always talk about the experts. Experts give opinions. Opinions aren't always right. And you should remember that. But those experts and these great people, they put COVID-infected people into nursing homes. The most vulnerable of the vulnerable people in our society, in our community. And they put, and look, everybody, I one time to make money, I worked in a nursing home in the kitchen, and I knew one thing from being there, that whenever there was a flu outbreak, that they put protocols in place about who could come into the building. The staff had to have their temperatures taken. You had to go through a test, you had to go through a list to make sure you weren't sick. Limited contact with the patients, the whole thing. Took this. Now you have something that spreads pretty rapidly and is deadly for this population. And these geniuses put them back in there, and 8,000 people died from that decision. 8,000 people. Why in the world would I trust them in telling me any kind of medical decision? I'd rather have it between my doctor and myself and make the decision, because those folks who are supposed to be the experts really did a bang-up job, didn't they? 8,000 people died. And personally, my humble opinion is that Murphy tries to say that he wanted to resend them back to where they were so they would be at home. That wasn't it. He didn't want to use that mercy ship that Trump put out there and those other hospitals that Trump set up. They went unused. And they should have gone there. That's where they should have put them. Where there was staff, it was an appropriate situation, but they didn't do that. And I'll let you draw your own conclusion why they didn't do that. I have my own. And it should shake everybody down to their foundation that they would do this. To me, it shows a lack, in my opinion, it shows a lack of respect for life, the sanctity of life, right? And that it doesn't really matter. And you wonder how we get some of the legislation that comes through that's pretty barbaric, that goes through the legislature with the Democrats. Well, this is the mindset. They live in a world where they value life based on the quality of life. And I always ask, well, who's determining quality of life, right? Because what I consider quality of life and what you may consider quality of life are two different things, right? And, you know, somebody like me who's at the gym every day, working out, is in great shape, you know, somebody who's struggles a little bit, that's not a quality of life that I'd want. Do I get to make the decision? Or do you get to make that decision, right? I think that when you start valuing life based on quality, it's a very dangerous place to go. When you don't see all life as equal and as valuable, that's how you get the ability, what goes on in China, where they have those concentration camps with the Uyghurs, because they don't value life. And when you value life, the truth of the matter is, if we all value life, you get peace and harmony. And the one thing, and the one thing that I say this to the school, because they always want to do these programs on about how we're supposed to be inclusive and everything. And I say, why don't we just teach one thing, what Jesus told us all? We're all God's children. Because if we're all God's children, one, that means we're all equal. If we're all God's children, that means that we should get along, right? It doesn't, you know, my kids love each other. I know it. They get along. They had their fights, but they love each other at the end of the day, and they treat each other. And at the end of the day, they always do the right thing with each other, right? If we taught that we're all God's kids and that we're all equal, a lot of the problems in the world would go away. If we taught the golden rule back like when I was a kid, right? Do unto others you want them to do unto you, which comes from the Bible, comes from the New Testament, comes from Jesus, that to treat your neighbors, you would treat as you want to be treated, right? And if we do those two things, a lot of this nonsense that goes on would go away. But when you start valuing life, that life, although it's one of God's children, it's not the same as this life, then that's a very, very dangerous place. And when that becomes the fabric of the government, and when you start seeing decisions made that way, it's a very dangerous place. We often say it could never happen here. All I got to tell you out there is, we never thought, if you asked anybody 5 years ago what happened in Australia would ever happen in Australia, because we see Australia as being one of us, right? Not much different than the United States, same heritage, same kind of thing. And what did they do? They set up basically concentration camps, lockdowns, took away all your civil rights, and at the point of a gun. Why do you think we're any different? The only difference is that we still have some people who are vigilant and we're willing to stand up and fight back, right? Somebody like yourself, some of the other gym owners, some of the other folks out there that push back, and those of us that were willing to fight and to say no to the Democrats when they try to do this power play. And it's very important that we realize that that was a thin line between what we saw go on in Australia and what actually happened here. And I think one of the things that saved us was that there were places that didn't buy into this. Florida, Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, those states, right, where they didn't go down that road. There was a place for us all to go if they tried to do it. And as a result, they weren't able to do it. And to think about this, it's a very precarious situation when we have half the country that was willing to have all their rights taken away and the other half fighting against that, right? That balance is a very precarious balance. It used to be 60 or 70% of us would fight to protect our rights. Now we're at 50-50. It's a very dangerous place. And, you know, and people here in New Jersey were so beaten down by it and what they saw, the strong-arm tactics that went on, the use of the government and the way that they did things, threatening people's jobs, threatening all kinds of stuff going on, that people lost hope. And I'm proud to say that my Republican caucus in the Assembly, not the Senate, but in the Assembly, we recognized that. And there was a majority of us who wanted to fight back and let people know that we were still with them and we were fighting. And that's how December 2nd happened, where we fought back against the Democrats and won. And then again on the December 20th, we fought back against the Democrats and won. And eventually they looked for a truce. And what we got out of that in my office that day after December 2nd, where that video went viral across the country, made national news, because think about this, a bunch of Republican legislators in blue New Jersey were the only people, the only legislators in the entire country that stood up and fought back, that stood up for civil rights, that stood up against this tyranny that was going on in our state through executive order. And I like to, it happened here. And I think that symbolism, realizing that if it could happen here, it could happen anywhere. Yeah. And the people realizing that they weren't alone, that got more rallies going, that pushed back. And I think where this was headed, and people should understand this, when they could force the legislature to be vaccinated or to take a test, to come in and to exercise our constitutional rights. Our constitutional rights. I have a right to be in that building. They can't put any restrictions on it. And they did it in an illegal way. When if they could have got us to comply, to go along with it, then no one stood a chance, because they could say, see, the legislature has said this is good. If it's good for the legislature, it's good for you. And where they were headed was to vaccinate our kids to be able to go to school. And I think that because we stood up and pushed back and we gave people some hope, and they organized again and started doing rallies, that we were able to prevent the governor from ordering that any kid that goes to school has to be vaccinated. And I think that is the greatest victory. History will say that was a great victory for civil rights and for freedom in our time. Yeah. In us doing that, because it set in motion a whole lot of things, and it gave some backbone to people. And I was glad to be part of that. And I've been punished for it, of course, take me off of committees, put me on a committee that doesn't do anything, and some other stuff that they've tried to do to me, and even some people in my own party, right? But it was the right thing to do, and I would do it again if I had to, because I look at it that I stopped the tyranny. They knew that they couldn't do it anymore. They knew they had to find an end game at that point, because I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't going to stop. They couldn't, all the things, no matter how many state troopers, no matter how big they were, even the National Guard wasn't going to stop us. Those intimidation tactics. And let me tell you, their intimidation tactics, that was showing, I will use the force of government to crush you if I have to. And I'll be perfectly honest, that mindset that came from swimming, it emboldened me more. It only made me want to stand up stronger and taller. It only made me want to win even more. And it had the exact opposite impact on me than what they intended. It emboldened me to do more, because you want to look, I'm a competitor. I'm not a fighter, I'm a competitor. And one thing about a fighter fights, right? They fight and whatever happens, but a competitor goes to win. It's all about winning. And once you get the competitor in me going, I'm gonna win. And that day, when they did those things, the second day, when they brought all those guys in, the competitor in me came out, and I was never going to stop until I won. and we did win. And I just want to, I have a little funny thing I like to tell people is, most people don't know this, but the Battle of Trenton during our revolution, the Battle of Trenton, that occurred in Hunterdon County because Trenton was in Hunterdon County at the time. Hunterdon County was much larger than it currently is, and Mercer County didn't exist. And Battle of Trenton took place in Hunterdon County. The second Battle of Trenton was led by a guy from Hunterdon County, right? There's something there, right? So, you know, Hunterdon County is the place where the revolutions changed things, right? The Battle of Trenton was the turning point. The Battle of Trenton in 2022, or 2021, it was in December, 2021 was the turning point. And I'm proud to have participated in that. And I'm proud that Hunterdon County was the catalyst for that again, in a sense, where that turning point came. And I think people, look, we're not done. They haven't given up. They're just trying to refigure out how to do these things. And if we don't stand tall, and we don't, if we give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, right?
Yeah.
So look, that's why I'm running for Congress, because that is the ultimate viper pit. And although there's some people down there fighting, we don't have enough people who are down there pushing leadership to fight. We get the leadership talks a good game, but there's no passion, there's no creativity, they have no plan on how to get their message out in a strong way, how to fight back with the Democrats in procedural and other ways to let them know that this is a battle, and it's not a battle of one day. The battle that we did with COVID wasn't just one day, it wasn't just 2 days, it was an ongoing battle. We had to fight it ongoing for a period of time until they finally lifted all the restrictions and it stopped them, because they knew we weren't going to stop.
Yep.
This is an everyday battle. You've got to be, and this is where my background in swimming. Every day you got to hop in that pool and do the yardage, and it's not always fun. It's never really fun, but it's necessary, and the reward for it can be great. And I'm running. I want to go down to Congress because we need somebody to rally those troops. We need somebody who's willing to say to leadership, you need to do more than this. And look, I've gone to the leadership here on things, and I've said, look, you can either be with me or I'm going to do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
School board members, right? This is one way that we got to know each other. School board members, I went to them and said, hey, we should help school board members so we get the right school board members on the school board. Crickets, right? I told them, I'll either do it with you or I'm going to do it my own. They didn't want to do it, so I did it anyway. And I was very successful at it. I won't stop. If leadership doesn't want to do it, I'll find a way to do it. I'll bring it out every day in some way. I'll do it in some creative way to make sure that people know, and that the message gets out. And look, you can make leadership, look, this is why leadership never loved me. This is why the establishment doesn't love me, because I make them get out of their comfort zone and do the right thing. And people don't like it when you push them to do that, because they're the leaders and I'm just supposed to follow. I'm not following. Look, I respect the leadership, but you know what? I'm in it to win. And you can't win by doing the same thing over and over that doesn't work. The same tired messaging, the same going on the same shows. There's better ways to do it. You got to be dramatic sometimes in the way that you do it. You got to attract attention. You've got to get out there and get to the people and let them know. I mean, whether you love Donald Trump or you hate his guts, the one thing you know, we all knew exactly what he was doing or exactly what he thought.
Yep.
Right? I might do it differently than he did, and everything, But you can get your message out. And what he did was he educated a whole vast group of people about what was going on. And he got the message out, and he was effective with it. And there's ways that we can be effective. You don't have to send out angry tweets, and you don't have to do those things, but there's ways to do it and to get your messaging out. But you have to be bold. You have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to do the work, even when swimming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for 2-3 hours at a time is not exciting. But what it does do, by doing that work every day, that hard work every day, when the moment comes, like it did on December 2nd, when that moment came, I was ready for it.
Yeah.
I was ready for it. And I had nothing planned, but I said the right things at the right time, at the right moment, because I had been training for this, because of all my values and everything that I had done. And when that moment and opportunity came, I was ready. I was ready at that moment to do what needed to be done. I said the right thing at the right time in the right way. And what did it do? It went viral across the nation and got our message out. And people all over this country contacted me and told me how great that was. And it wasn't because I'm the greatest. It was because I did all that work that built up to that moment. And when that moment came, I was ready. And that's why we have to do that work and be persistent and realize that the moment will come. It's like anything. It's swim meet, that big race, whatever it happens to be, you've got to be ready for it. And if you're not constantly working at it, constantly making yourself better, constantly honing your message, constantly coming up with creative ways to do things, constantly building on it, when that moment comes, you won't be ready.
That's it. And I think that's a perfect way to leave it, man. You're inspiring. You know, that's why I support you. I think that's why people, you know, they need a leader that does what he said he would do. You know, we're all going to be rooting for you. So thanks for being on the show. Maybe we'll do this again before the primary. I got a lot of other questions.
Okay.
Too. That was great. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Oh, it's really